And so I turned around a little bit taken aback and sort of took a backward step to sort of assess the situation. And there was Graham Coxon pissed out of his head, who thought I was Robbie Williams.
Welcome. We are Neil,
Luke and Dave.
340-somethings reminiscing on the runners and riders of 90s guitar music.
We look at the bands who soundtracked our youth on both sides of the pond and interview some of our heroes from the bands that defined a generation.
You'll hear about the good, the bad and the ugly of 90s guitar music.
This podcast is Stupid and Contagious. Episode 11 of the Stupid and Contagious podcast. This one's a little bit different. We're going to be speaking to Stu Whiffen from the Pink Toothbrush, which is the longest running indie club in the UK. 39 years, he says. That's a long time, right?
Yeah, really
for
is.
Any club to run.
Yeah.
But before we get into it, this episode, new Beatles song. What does everyone think?
Oh,
Well, that's quite nice, I think.
yeah, I like it.
It's all right, isn't it? It's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good. I like the strings. It sounds like a Beatles song. I think it's great.
It's clever, isn't it?
It is a bit, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, the Red and Blue albums are coming out tomorrow. They've got some AI treatment as well.
This is the way forward then, isn't it? This is what's going to happen.
I think the old Beatles stuff could use a bit of AI because it is a bit, some of them weren't even recorded in stereo, were they?
You shouldn't mess with that shit, though, should you?
No, you
mess
shouldn't.
with that shit. I think part of music and albums is their historical context of how they were recorded as well. Luke,
Yeah.
I say this in the interview. I don't think you'll take offence if I say that not everyone's going to know who he is. So if you can just tell us a little bit about Stu Whiffen, our guest this week.
All right. Stu Whiffen. I think he's currently 50 years old, from Essex.
Right.
And I think he runs the Pink Toothbrush, as you said, longest running kind of indie club, alternative club in the UK. Did you watch the documentary that you talked about?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's good.
It was good. Yeah.
Yeah, so for anyone that wants to, it's probably a good idea actually too, is if you go on YouTube, there's a documentary on the Pink Toothbrush. It just basically gives you the whole history of the club night. So it's a good one to watch.
Yeah, well, we will put a link in the notes if we can. Yeah, before the Pink Toothbrush, it was called Crocs, and according to the documentary, it had real alligators in the club.
Not sure that's necessary.
Oh, I don't know. If you're going to call it that, I'm sure there's pink toothbrushes everywhere.
True.
But crocodiles are different from alligators. Alligators are from America, aren't they? Crocs are from somewhere else.
Thanks, David Attenborough.
David Battenberg.
That doesn't even match. It doesn't make sense.
It's the same amount of syllables.
It's not.
Kind of.
It's nearly though. It's nearly. Which
I was
is
quite proud of that. That was off the cuff.
So yeah, in the documentary they say the amount of live bands that have played there. Depeche Mode had a residency. Blur, Senseless Things. So Radiohead got paid 50 quid to play there. Just real long history, right? So Stuart himself, so he's been DJing there for 30 years basically, and at the same time he's in a couple of bands when he was younger. He talks about it in an interview. He was in a band called Serious Problem, managed by Ricky Gervais, and he was in another band. I think I haven't been able to find out much. I think they were called Lilo, and they got like a record deal and everything in those heady days of I think Britpop. But I don't think it went anywhere. We
mainly got Stu on because he's got such encyclopedic knowledge of that scene from the 90s, right?
Yeah.
He's a really interesting guy, and he's just what he doesn't know about 90s music probably isn't really worth knowing. I think we probably agree.
Yeah. And he's got a load of podcasts basically. So if you're into this podcast, then I definitely recommend Off the Beat and Track podcast. He just interviews like loads of like musicians and actors and stuff, and he has like a set of questions which he asks the same questions every week, and it's really, really good. He's got one called Hardcore Listing, and that people have to choose their top 5, and that's pretty funny. My favourite one of his, though, he's got a monthly podcast called Acceptable in the 80s. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
It's him and his mate Cunt from Cunt and the Gang. And they basically talk about, you know, Cunt and the Gang, right? They had a top 5 hit with Boris Johnson is a fucking cunt.
When?
Do you remember?
No.
What about the follow-up a year later? Boris Johnson is still a fucking cunt.
No.
Prince Andrew is a sweaty non. What about the new one? Rishi Sunak is a rat-face cunt. There's not much variation on their themes, to be fair. Anyway, on that podcast, basically him and Cunt, they go through like the month in like 40 years ago. So like it'd be like, you know, whatever, November like 1983, and they go through music and films and news and sport, and it's basically the most outrageously offensive podcast you could imagine. They spend most of the time talking about how they imagine the cocks of various 80s celebrities look like.
Give an example.
The podcast. Well, go onto Twitter and look up. Someone's made like cock trumps to go with a podcast. So just go onto Twitter and have a look.
Is it based on pure fantasy or
complete speculation? Yeah. So they just name like an 80s celebrity, whether Jeremy Beadle, whatever, and then Cunt will just imagine, you know, whatever properties Jeremy Beadle's cock comprises.
It's going to be small and withered, isn't it?
Beadle.
Yeah, let's just chat a little bit about indie clubs, as that's what we're mainly focused on in the interview. What was the one that the Pav Tav, wasn't it? That's
Pav
the one that
Tav,
we went
Pavilion
to, Brighton,
Tavern,
wasn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Dave, did you ever go to Pav Tav?
I think so. Well, there was one that was definitely, like you say, underground, literally underground.
This was overground.
So I remember now that underground one.
To the Pav Tav.
The underground one. I'm pretty sure it's just called the Basement.
Yeah, it's underneath. It was underneath that Ponzi wine bar. It was really weird because there's like a really laddish, typical, horrible bar, and then all the indie kids went down these dangerous steps into this dark, dingy basement.
Yeah. The main one there, yeah, Pav Tav, Pavilion Tavern, on a Thursday, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. They're the sort of places we used to frequent, right? And a lot of fun, as I remember.
Yeah. What tunes do you remember to get you on the dance floor?
It was always hard, I thought, to dance to indie music. I didn't really know what to do.
Not for him. It was fucking cockered up, wasn't he? For want of a better phrase.
What does that mean?
You danced like Jarvis Cocker.
Well, I was going to talk about that. So, like, one of I think like the best tune to dance to at that time was Disco 2000. Yeah, because you could pull Jarvis shapes, man. You know, like.
Well, you could, yeah.
Well, anyone can. That's the thing, and everyone did. You know, like Oasis, they just stand there like nothing. You know, Jarvis came along. You got something to do at an indie club. He saved the indie club. You know.
I kind of agree with Dave a little bit. I was always a little bit. I didn't really know what I was doing.
You just shuffle, don't you?
You kind of looked like you knew what you were doing.
But that's probably my top indie club tune at that time. It's Disco 2000.
I think the Pav Tav, they used to play a lot of mod music as well, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
There was always a Stones track would come on, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was a good mix.
And the only one I know was always that. Again, that was like a crossover one, right?
I think that was my go-to one. I think
it's the one I remember.
It did feel like you were sort of part of something different to the rabble going on above you in the streets of Brighton. Do you know what I mean?
Always felt quite safe in an indie club, right?
I mean, Neil used to fall asleep in the toilets every time, basically.
I did used to fall asleep in the toilet, you're right.
I know you did.
I think you did get that at these at the indie clubs. You occasionally saw someone that had clearly just come with their mates or wandered into the wrong place.
There's a bit of a crossover with Oasis fans.
Stu talks about it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the sort of mid-90s when Oasis came out, it became a different kind of scene, didn't it?
Did you or did we ever go to the other clubs, the townie clubs? The only time I remember we went to the Zap Club and I had like 2 or 3 people asking me if I had any pills.
When I went to university, I got really into the dance scene as well at the time, like Paul Oakenfold and Sasha and Digweed and all that sort of stuff. So I did used to go to, I think it was called the Paradox, and a few of the other places.
That's a
in
good
Brighton.
towny nightclub name.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, when I was at university, I went to the Thekla and the Beer Keller in Bristol. And yeah, that's kind of towny thing. I remember I used to have to walk through like the towny area to get home. And whoever happened to be in the charts that week, I would get like shouted at me. I'd be like, oi, Richard Ashcroft. Just because I had like, a bit of an indie haircut. Oi, Shed 7.
Yeah.
And whoever happened to be like higher in the charts that week, I got shouted.
Stockholm had a indie club called Debaser, which was pretty good.
Oh, after the Pixies song.
Yeah, that's right. And I saw Blue Tones there.
Slight Return's a great indie club tune, though.
Yeah.
I went to a bar the other day, and we were in the garden. I went to pay for my drinks, and they're like, "Oh no, you have to do it. You have to do it from the app." Like, what do you mean? Like, you have to do it from the app? It says on the table, you've got to scan the QR code and pay like that. I'm like, I'm here now.
Yeah.
Why can't I just pay?
Oh man, I hate all of that. I didn't get a smartphone until a couple of years ago, right? So,
You haven't seen Star Wars either, have you?
I still haven't seen it. I'm not going to.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
Fuck off. I'll tell you what's bullshit. That fucking film is bullshit. That's what's bullshit.
Luke Pie Stalker. That's another one.
Mate, leave the comedy names to Dave.
Because my university was so small, it wasn't really a university. It was like an arts college. It was in a small town called Farnham. And it's a lovely town. I think it's one of the most wealthy towns in the country or something. But so it didn't have any nightclubs. It had a few pubs and that. So the student union did their best to make it as decent as possible. Every night of the week, they had a different night. They had like an 80s night. And I don't think they had a specific indie night. I think people were more into dance music at that time. I'm not sure.
Josh Wink, High State of Consciousness.
Robert Miles, Children, all that stuff, What about you, Dave? What did you go out in Cardiff? I've been out in Cardiff once. Do you remember?
I can't remember what the main indie club is called. There was a Welsh club.
What happened to you in the Welsh club? What happened there?
Well, it's called the Welsh Club.
All right.
You kind of felt like you weren't that welcome there if you weren't Welsh, but I'm sure you were.
Did you have to fuck a sheep to get in?
Did you?
I instantly regret that comment. I take it back.
They had a good indie club. I just can't remember what it was called.
Did you go?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thanks, man.
It's one of my best anecdotes.
Thanks for that insight.
Isn't it? This must be where Swin got the appetite to start the Rakes.
I'll do some name dropping, Dave. You better explain to the listeners who Swin is.
But yeah, he's one of the founding members of the band The Rakes. Who
Great
had
band.
some success. Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
22 grand wouldn't get you far in the city these days, would it?
Not anymore. This was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Probably be 32 grand job.
In the city.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe more. In the city, it's all right.
Yeah.
Oh, someone brought this up in the Facebook group. I'll just mention it really quickly. About us not having like little song clips that we're talking about. And the reason we don't do it is because there's a bit of a grey area with the whole copyright thing. We might get away with it, but we might not. And we didn't want to be 15 episodes down the line and then all our episodes get pulled. So we decided to just not do it, which is why Luke makes the playlist each week so that you can go and listen to the music that we're talking about. We'd love to do it that way, but it's just too much of a risk. We just don't want all the episodes pulled and then that'd be a bit of a disaster. So
yeah, so we're ready to play the interview. It's really, really, I mean, I wasn't there, but it was really good one to listen to. And when you listen to it, it sounds like Stu and Luke and Neil have been friends. He's just such a friendly guy, uses their first name. So it just sounds like a friend's chat.
We're trying to get him in to be the third member.
Do it.
His knowledge of the Lighthouse family, it's just not there.
Irreplaceable, Dave.
Oh, thanks, guys. Anyway, here's the interview. Enjoy it.
Hi, Stu. Thanks for coming on. hope it's okay to say that not everyone who's listening, watching will know who you are. So you've mostly operated behind the scenes. Could you just introduce yourself to the listeners? Tell us a bit about how you got involved in the sort of indie scene in the 90s.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, gents. It's a
Pleasure.
real pleasure to be on this podcast. Just looking as I do on Zoom over people's shoulders when I turn up on podcasts, because you get a little snapshot into people's houses. I'm very nosy like that. Luke, that's a very impressive vinyl collection you've got behind you.
I live in a tiny apartment in the middle of Tokyo. It's
That's...
not a good place to have a large vinyl collection.
Right, I can imagine. I was hoping you was going to admit that it was just wallpaper. That wasn't actually a vinyl collection.
Yeah, it's just a big poster.
Should have done.
And Neil, that looks like a photo of Kurt there, I believe.
It is. That's followed me around for 25 years. An ex-girlfriend got it for me a long time ago, and
wonderful.
Yeah,
but yeah, I've been I was in two bands through the 90s, one of which was signed, one of which wasn't, but was managed by Ricky Gervais. That's our claim to fame.
Interesting.
But
well, can you tell us about that? What were the band called and all of that?
The band was called Serious Problem, and it was a kind of novelty comedy band, but with some really good musicians. And it was a kind of crazy. It was a 9-piece. So we had myself as the lead vocalist, and we had a couple of rappers, and we had the DMC scratch champion of the world at the time, DJ Destruction, doing scratching. So it was kind of a little bit Beastie Boys. Probably It lent a little bit towards like Bloodhound Gang and that kind of novelty edge of it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We've done lots of shows and done some really fun ones. And yeah, Ricky saw us. He was the Ents manager at Ulu at the time.
Right, okay. I was going to say, how did he get involved?
And had been and was managing Suede as well. And
so we're talking like 91? Is this like?
Yeah. No,
early Suede, like.
Yeah, it was maybe a year later. I don't know. Yeah, it's very
okay, 91, 92. Yeah.
And he looked after us until we kind of knocked it on the head, really. And then I moved into all of the time I was doing this, just to kind of fast track a little intro, really.
Yeah,
I'd got into promoting indie nights in the very early 90s.
Yeah.
I set a little one up in Basildon, and then I got headhunted by a club formerly called Crocs, and for the last 39 years it's been called the Pink Toothbrush. To this day, it's the longest running.
I was going to say it's still going, right?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was there last Friday, and I'll be there tomorrow. But yeah, and it's something I'm fiercely proud of all the things that I've kind of tried to do for work over the years. The toothbrush is my absolute baby, and I love it. And there's an amazing documentary on YouTube you can watch about the club, which really documents how important it's been, certainly in Essex, for the alternative community, and obviously for many years it was pivotal on the live circuit.
Yeah, well, when the podcast comes out, we'll stick a link to that YouTube.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. No, people would be interested.
So essentially, that's been me. Like, always putting on indie club nights. I set up club nights for XFM. I set up club nights for the NME, and then I started putting together indie celebrity-led club nights. So I put together club nights with an actor called Matthew Horn, who was Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
We run a night together, an indie night together, and for 10 years, and I've put club nights on for 10 years with Mr. Scroobius Pip, who I still continue to work with to this day. So that's kind of it, really. Just always been a club promoter, always been in bands. Not now, I'm way too old. But yeah, and always just been obsessed with music of all genres, but I do have a huge love for music from the 90s, and because it was the my youth, and so that's where I think we always look back so fondly on them formative years.
That's why we started the podcast. Really, we're getting a bit older, and it's nice to sort of reminisce on these things while we still can.
You remember?
I mean, I think everyone's youth, they'll say that they were the best period for music. But I do think that there's something about the 90s that I think maybe it was because it was the last sort of generation before the internet and mobile phones and all that sort of thing. And I think there was something special back then that maybe you don't have now. But I'm not young now, so maybe I'm just because I'm old.
I completely agree, Neil. I think I was listening to Noel Gallagher on a podcast the other day, and they were asking him, why was Nebworth so special?
Yeah.
And he said, because everyone was in the moment.
Yeah.
No one had a mobile phone.
Yeah.
And, you was there, you was connecting with a band. You wasn't texting your mate. You wasn't filming it, so you've got it on your phone to never, ever watch again. Because, does anybody really go back and watch the footage they've got?
No, of course they don't. No.
A couple of days later, it's forgotten, isn't it? And And I totally agree. I think that period of music as well was really interesting. I think, even to sort of take it back 2 years to 88 and looking at the genres that were exploding in hip hop, and the crossover to, in hip hop and alternative music, in indie music, sorry. And, the tail end of acid house music was exploding everywhere. And, and you had the stuff that was coming out of Manchester, and then and all of that kind of merged together. And by the time you get to the early 90s, you've just got some incredible bands just putting together these sort of hybrids of all of these things. And then I think the 90s, just as far as guitars go, I think it's been the best decade of guitar music. I don't think it's been better.
I agree. Just putting because we've got a little Facebook group, just finding music to put on there and remembering and listening to some of the bands now. It's just like the live performances were incredible, and the guitars were just so loud, and I don't know. I think it was pretty special.
Yeah, I remember having an online argument with someone once, as you do, and saying how I think Britpop's kind of laughed at, right? And I was like, the Rolling Stones never wrote a song as good as Rock and Roll Star. Dylan never wrote a song as good as Common People, socially political song as good as Common People. You can laugh all you want, but these were amazing tracks and amazing times.
I think Common People becomes a wedding song and a Mr. Brightside. It becomes that.
Mr. Brightside.
It's so much more than that. It's incredible. The depth of that song, man. It's.
But let me just say that I think Common People, behind Be My Baby by the Ronettes, is the greatest pop song ever written. It's
my song of the 90s. That's amazing you said that. I've always
full version. Yeah. It's got to have. You'll never understand how it feels to live your life with no meaning, no control, and nowhere left to go.
It's like chills up the spine stuff, man.
Amazing. That
like a dog lying in the corner. That when it kind of drops down like that, it's man.
I've got goosebumps.
Yeah. Same.
I think also Jarvis Cocker was the last great British pop star.
Oh, nice. That's interesting.
Don't get me wrong. I don't like his music, but I'm quite interested by Lewis Capaldi. He amuses me no end.
Me too. I'm always watching Lewis Capaldi.
But I think Jarvis was just the anti-hero. He was the absolute nerd, and he just took over the world. And the Brits malarkey was fantastic. And I
went to see Pulp in their first gig after the Brits debacle. It was like the following week, and they played Cardiff, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Have you watched the documentary where they break down Common People?
No, I haven't. No.
It's on the BBC, and they go back to the studio, and it's pretty much the full band. I think Hawley's there as well, and they go back to where they rehearsed it and wrote it, and because it was at the drummer's dad's shop, they had like a loft above it. It's a wonderful doc. I think it's on a BBC iPlayer, and they break that song down and they try and find the girl that he wrote it about.
Right,
And,
right.
But I think it's an absolute masterpiece. Pulp are an incredible band.
Yeah.
But Common People for me is it's arguably the greatest pop song ever.
Oh yeah,
written.
and
Mate, agreed.
that whole album is just. It was when it was Luke as well. We were both at uni at the time, different universities, but yeah, that album was everywhere, and everyone was loving it. It's just a great album, lyrically and musically. It's just a great album.
And the social commentary is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, just that. Yeah. You know, just the pop, the joyousness of the music, and you've got that kind of his Mike Lee-esque kind of kitchen sink, you know, social commentary. It just works perfectly. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Where did you go to uni, boys?
I went to uni in Farnham. It's a tiny little arts university. It's good fun though. This was back in the mid-90s where people just went because they didn't want to go to work because you didn't have to pay for it.
I was in Bristol.
Oh, right. What, in the 90s?
Yeah, mid-90s.
Oh,
yeah,
mate,
yeah,
what
yeah,
a time to be.
I used to see
Bristol.
like Ronnie Size on his bicycle and all of that. Yeah.
Wonderful.
You lived in the horrible bit of Bristol there, didn't you?
I moved to a nicer place after, but yeah, I did for a bit. Yeah. It was fun though, man. I used to go in like St. Paul's and they have like lock-in pubs with like these huge Jamaican dudes on the door, and I was like this little indie kid trying to get in. It was cool. It was fun.
Yeah.
What was the indie club scene like where yous were?
In Brighton.
That's what. We're going to talk about that now. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, in Brighton, we loved it. It was quite underground, but most of the clubs were underground. But it was pretty good.
Literally.
Yeah,
I mean, we're going to ask about this because like there was one club we only went a couple of times, but it was like this underground basement, and it was like super tiny, and it looked like someone's flat basically, and they had like this alternative club, but it was like right in the middle of West Street. I don't know if you've ever been to Brighton. It's like it's like the equivalent of like the Ritzies or whatever. They're like the Zap Club. So to get there, you had to walk through like beard up geezers. And it was fucking scary, man. As like a little indie kid at the time. Did you have any of that when you were a punter before you were a DJ? Like, especially in Essex, I don't know, man.
Well, Essex, you know, I guess as you sort of get late 80s, early 90s in Essex, you know, we was the poster for the Essex girl, and you know these kind of stilettos and white stilettos and all of that, and it was very much that, you know, the lads were soul boys and, you know, XR Free Eyes, and but I think, you know, I went to lots of clubs like that just that were local because it you know, essentially I just wanted to go with the people that I was at college with to get drunk and meet girls, and then I think it would have been 90 that my mates went, we should go to Pink Toothbrush. And by then, like, because in the late 80s, I was always into sort of, I loved pop music. Like, and by that, I mean the pop music that was coming out in the 80s. I'm talking, you know, Essex's heroes, Depeche Mode.
Oh, man, I'm a big Depeche
Boys
Mode fan.
Neil's the Depeche Mode fan of the group.
Big Depeche Mode.
Fantastic! Like,
how can you not be? Luke, you're an idiot.
Well, they were a resident
I don't
band.
not like them. I just don't know as much as you do, mate.
If you watch the Toothbrush documentary, you'll see footage of Depeche Mode playing there. They were like the residents. And,
oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's
back
cool.
back in the day, yeah. And because the Toothbrush is in the little town that shoulders with Basildon, obviously where they're from.
Yeah.
And I got convinced to go to the Toothbrush, and I remember walking in, and the first time I walked in, I heard this track called "Groovy with Mr. Blow" by Mr. Blow, which is almost like a sort of Northern Soul record, and it's just a harmonica. It's a fucking great record, and I remember thinking, wow, I didn't think clubs could play stuff like this. And then I was hearing Nitzer Ebb, and I was hearing the one like early Wonderstuff, early PWEI itself, Jesus Jones, Info Freako, and I remember just thinking, and the people in there was kind of lots of people that were one of the big sort of Robert Smith. There was loads of Morrissey clones. There was loads of lads in sort of Senseless Things t-shirts with dreadlocks and shorts and Carter t-shirts. It was the era of the t-shirt bands, and but then you'd also get all your baggy boys that you know. And I remember hearing the Vince Clarke remix of "Rope for Luck" in there on that first night, and just thinking, I'm never going to go anywhere else. Like this is me. And and I religiously went every week, and to be honest, it was for most people in Essex, it was Marmite. You either walked in there and went, "Fuck this! It's dingy in here. It smells. It's full of weirdos. No, thank you." But that's what I wanted.
I'm home.
And it was.
Same for us. Same for us.
And it's been my home for 30 years. And don't get me wrong, I always set up other nights because I'd set this little night up when I was still clubbing at the Toothbrush, and built it up. And it was a little night in Basildon, and I built it up to the point that the club headhunted me and brought me in, and I couldn't believe my luck. This club that I loved, I become the DJ, and had no idea over the years that I'd have my name above the door, and it'd be I'll be running the place. It was crazy but wonderful. But then I think what happened as the 90s, I guess essentially when Nirvana happened, mainstream clubs were like, we need one of these indie nights.
Right, exactly. And
it felt then that certainly by like 94, I was going out 5 nights a week and there was indie nights wherever. You go into London, and there was, where I lived, I was like a 20-minute drive from London. So we'd go up to Leicester Square, and there was a club called the Gas Club, which was, a very famous kind of dance club. On a Wednesday night, it was keyboard breaker Ian Baker from Jesus Jones, a DJ, and a guy called Jeff Automatic, and the warm-up DJ was a guy called Errol Olken. And and we'd go and watch Errol playing. I remember he was the first person that I remember played "Killing in the Name" by Rage in a nightclub.
Oh wow!
And I remember thinking, "Fucking hell, this what's this?" And I remember him playing Razzmatazz by Pulp, and it just felt that like everywhere indie nights were popping up, but they were still had retained that kind of thing that it's fucking full of weirdos. And if you was a lad that liked football, girls, lager, you weren't going to go to them places because it weren't what you was about. Fast forward 2 years, 2 brothers from Manchester start talking about football, fighting, fucking, and all of a sudden they blow the doors off and opens it to the football terraces.
The pastel. They used to call them the pastels. Everyone had a different shade of pastel Ben Sherman, right? Yeah. That's what I used to call them.
Yeah. Noel Gallagher said that, didn't he? He said when I walked on stage at Nebworth, I thought, well, I've just fucking killed the indie scene. And and it just took it to the masses where the aforementioned Pulp and Oasis and Blur and Suede, they become the biggest pop bands. They were pop bands then.
They were pop bands. They were
and it was so mad. And then you could not move for indie nights. They were everywhere. You can't find one for Love and the Money now. But
I was going to say, But did you DJ up around the country much at that point?
Around the country, no. The band, the bands were playing all over the shop, but I was very much kind of Essex based, and kind of spun all of my other little nights off the fact that I'd managed to blag this residency at the Toothbrush, which was the mecca for alternative kids in Essex. So
it's interesting.
There was a great one in sorry, mate. There's a great one in Bristol called the Thekla. It was on a boat.
I DJ'd Thekla. I DJ'd Thekla for Dot to Dot Festival with Matt. when we done our session night a few years
Yeah, I used to
ago.
go there on a Saturday night when I was
I remember
at
now. Yeah,
university.
you used to talk about that a lot. The effect.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
it's great.
Place. Still going strong, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, really? As a nightclub, as a club?
I believe so. Like, yeah, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
It's
interesting what you're saying about Nirvana there, because we interviewed Ben from the Senseless Things, and he he said that basically Nirvana killed the Senseless Things because Senseless Things were ticking along nicely, touring around the country, doing all the gigs, and then Nirvana come along, and everyone just wants to listen to Nirvana,
Well, I kind of get what he's saying to a degree, because we call bands like Carter, Stuffies, Senseless Things, Grebo bands. That's what we call them.
Did you play them in the club though?
The Senseless Things played at my club, and my band supported them. It was Senseless Things, Corner Shop, and us on the same bill.
Oh wow, that's amazing!
Very early Corner Shop, but Senseless Things, I think, was still like I think Hold It Down had just charted.
Yeah.
And
I got a bone to pick with Corner Shop. I'll tell you about it after. Go on. Go on.
And I remember to this day, I have never seen a better bass player on stage than Morgan Nichols from the Senseless Things.
He's
just
phenomenal.
Off the scale. Yeah. And Ben was the serious one. Ben was the guy that seemed a bit more quiet than all the others. Because I was fanboying out, and I was playing Paul with Mark Heads, God rest his soul. Who was just this super sweet, cool, tiny little man.
Yeah, everyone said he was just always super friendly, right?
Yeah, lovely. As I've got video footage of my friend who could put an entire bag of minstrels behind his foreskin, and
I told you. Yeah,
he
wasn't in EMF, was he?
No. I've got a funny story about
that's the story about EMF, right? He put an orange inside his foreskin.
Zach could, right?
Neil didn't believe me. He wouldn't have it. I told him he would not believe me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's confirmed.
I've got a video of Morgan Nichols going, man.
So you haven't got a video of that?
No, I've got a video of Morgan Nichols just looking bewildered at my mate cramming a bag of minstrels behind his foreskin backstage.
Why?
But yeah, what a band they were. I think he just wanted to show off in front of the Senseless Things.
But how did he find out he could do that?
I imagine a process of elimination. I don't know if he started off with Rebels or I'm not sure. But I think they didn't
you go with Skittles or something smaller, right? Yeah.
I guess so.
But yeah, I do think that what happened with, and what's it really interesting about bands from that era, which I bang on about at any opportunity I can on my podcast, is people always talk about Oasis and the Stone Roses, as these trailblazers, and the Smiths, which are all amazing bands. And they but they forget that these bands didn't have massive hits in America. EMF had a number one.
Oh, yeah, number one.
Jesus Jones had a number one.
Yeah.
Stateside. That's huge.
Yeah.
But I think all of them bands, like them kind of Grebo bands that were dominating my favourite part of the 90s, which is the Wonderstuff, Carter, that's my absolute favourite thing, Senseless Things. I love that.
I think
music.
Same for us, really.
That's who we've been interviewing so far, actually. The whole thing.
Then the focus changes because Nirvana happens, and it's like
that's what he said.
Oh my god! This absolute amazing band happened that released a whole album of perfect pop songs.
Yeah.
There's no track on Nevermind that isn't pop perfection.
Yeah.
It's like you break it down. I was really lucky on my podcast to have Butch Vig on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
And I spoke to Butch because I always ask guests, like, what's the greatest ever intro? And he's like, how can I not say Teen Spirit? And, you know, I know that Kurt wasn't overly blown away or a big fan of the production of that album. You know, I think he was more towards the Albini kind of approach. But for me, I think what Butch done with that record is phenomenal. And I think the intro sonically, you know, when you hear any of the sort of quiet lad moments on that album, it's just someone described it as being in a house and the roof collapses on you. And I just couldn't describe that any better. And I think once that happened, and then, you know, everybody started to kind of be obsessed with Kurt and be interested in the things that he was interested in, you know, and it was just like, all right. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, I went back and got obsessed with Teenage Fan Club because of Kurt's love for Teenage Fan Club. But then I was who's Mudhoney? Who's Tad? You know, who's Sonic Youth? And then like, and then obviously at that point, the Chili Peppers have commercial success. Pearl Jam has commercial success. Soundgarden, you know, all of these, you know, not the Peppers, but all of these Seattle bands. All of a sudden, they were just like everywhere, and it was exciting. It was like, oh, there's a new movement in music, and
it's cool.
And it's fronted by this complete anti-hero, you know, which is everything you want at that age. And I think everybody's eyes just went across the pond, and it sort of left a lot of those bands, them Grebo bands, kind of, I don't know, it just felt like the press had moved to what was happening in America.
That's exactly what Ben said. He said, the press were just not interested anymore. It's just all about.
But I mean, looking back, like that's exactly what we did, right? And we were the perfect. We were into those bands, and we went full grunge, basically, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, all of a sudden, you know, everybody had grown their hair. Everybody was wearing, you know, check shirts and shorts and docks, and it was. Like we've all done it, and you know, but the music's aged really well. Like,
Pearl Jam has still got a huge following. Pearl Jam is still selling out arenas and stuff.
One of my favourite bands. I saw them last year.
Did you?
And again, just every time I see them, they're one of the best fucking live bands you will ever see. And
I need to do that. I haven't seen them, so everything
they do, they retain integrity and very little compromise, and I love it. And I think also, you know, once the sort of world turned to America at this point, you've also got things like the Beastie Boys, you know, were making incredible music. Faith No More, you know, were releasing Angel Dust.
Spoke to Roddy the other week. He's a lovely fella.
You had Roddy on your podcast.
We spoke to Roddy. We don't know how
nicest bloke you could ever meet, man. Such a good bloke,
man. Like, what a moment! What a fire!
Seriously, album, it's probably one of the best moments of my life. But and
the best name in rock and roll, like ultimate best name. Like, I'm very jealous of that, boys. That's great.
Good. It was he was a really interesting guy, though. Really humble, just really interesting stories. Just to what you would imagine, basically. It was just it's really fun to talk to. But what a band!
Mate, ridiculous and incredible live. Absolutely, Mike Patton's got one of the greatest voices.
For sure. He's got like.
So, what was your?
He has actually got like an insane range. Like I watched this thing on YouTube where someone sort of delved into his vocal range, and it is like it's a bit like Mariah Carey. He can do more ranges than anyone else, sort of thing. But incredible.
What was your go-to grunge track at the Toothbrush to get everyone on the floor?
A little later, it would have been Rearview Mirror by Pearl Jam.
One of my favourite Pearl Jam songs. It's a good song.
Not an obvious one though. Interesting.
That I managed to sort of build like get people on board with because it's got such energy. Anything in and around that, and I use the term grunge loosely, but you know, you had your guaranteed, you had your Being Caught Stealing,
Killing in the Name, I guess,
and Killing in the Name, Give It Away. You know, anything like that would work. But I'd probably say Drain You by Nirvana.
Oh, nice.
Oh wow! Again, that's not an obvious one, right? That's interesting.
What an intro!
What a track.
I mean, I guess that's the beauty of DJing. Like, it must be such a buzz to sort of drop tracks that you love and watch everyone go nuts. They must be insane.
Well, sort of. Like, it's amazing when it happens, but there's, for every rear view mirror that I've managed to sort of, turn everyone around onto, there's always a chapter, there's always a Pearl by Chapter House that didn't work when I was trying my best to make it work.
I wonder why.
and there was, there's so many songs, that I just think, why are people not loving this? Because I think it's great, but you have to kind of find that sort of balance, I think, as a club DJ of sort of dropping some new stuff and also giving them what they want.
Yeah, not going too far off the wall,
but retaining a little bit of integrity along the way. Do you know what I mean? But it's so different now because, as I'm sure you boys know, back then, if you wanted a record, you wanted to hear something, your mate was either going to have it and tape it for you, or you might be lucky, and on the third Saturday of every month, it might be the indie chart on the chart show.
Oh man, those 5 minutes waited for him for like 3 weeks for that 5 minutes for the indie charts.
Completely. And you couldn't see these people anywhere. You could buy the NME or Select and you could look at them, but you couldn't see the videos. And you couldn't just go on Spotify and listen to it. You had to, and it was so, it made everything more valuable and more elusive, and that value was through the, when you did get that record, you'd associate it with that journey, be like, oh right, I remember, I went to Gumby's in Southend and I part exchanged a couple of old records I had, and they gave me £4, and then I managed to buy that Madder Rose record I wanted, and you've just got, and then you'd go home and you'd play that record religiously whilst, I don't know if you were the same, I'd just devour the sleeve and just look at the sleeve and read everything about it. And and that's one of the things I love, being able to stream music. I think it's amazing. I've got a collection very similar to yours behind you, Luke, and it's my pride and joy. And one of the things, I don't want to become, a granddad and go, well, it's better in the day. But two of the things, the first was what I said, where you attach a journey to it, of when you got that record. I love that.
Yeah.
What you don't get through streaming and digital releases now, I don't think, is iconic album artwork. There's probably loads out there, but you don't see it because you've just got a little box on your phone.
Yeah.
And I think, whereas, back in the day, you'd grab that, even a CD, and you'd be like, fucking look at that. That's phenomenal. Would you have another, would that Nevermind sleeve have the impact now if it just
probably wouldn't, right?
Yeah. And, I think there's a lot of artists that's works getting overlooked, and when there's probably some, I'm sure most artists still give every bit as much time and effort into their album design as ever, but it seems to just kind of get lost a little now.
Going back to that scarcity thing though, I think that made your job more valuable, right? Because you were the selector. You were selecting only a limited number of tunes every set, right? So you were kind of steering the scene at the same time. Did you feel that you were part of building that scene, just in the fact that you were choosing what people were going to hear and they wouldn't go home and buy like the next weekend in Woolworths or whatever?
I was definitely skint. Like, I spent all my bloody money trying to get these records.
But you were part of steered how that scene evolved, because you were the one selecting the records.
To a degree, I should credit the guys that were there before me, that had established the club on the map. But yeah, make no mistake, I had 2.25 hours every Saturday night to influence. And when I started, I was a new kid. I'd get the first hour, and this was kind of when people would come, into clubs early, and they wouldn't, they wouldn't be sort of sitting at home drinking beer. They'd come in the club early because I'd be playing new music, and it was a great hour to have because there was no pressure to make people dance. It was like, right, I'm just going to play some really great music, and then when you get them people coming up, which they don't do anymore because they've all got Shazam and things like that, and they're like, "What's this?" And like, and I promise you, I never kind of adopted that high fidelity snobbery. Like, I'd always be like really excited if people come up and wanted to know what I was playing, and it's lovely, you know, if you play something that connects with someone and they come up and they want to know what it is, and you think, oh, they're going to go and buy that now, and you don't know where that relationship they have with that record's ever going to go. Do you know what I mean? They could end up walking down the aisle to it, or they could end up naming their kid after the artist that sings that song. And you know, the fact that I've been at this venue for so long, it's amazing to see people come along and go, oh, my mum and dad said to say hello. Makes me feel old as hell, but my mum and dad said to say hello. They met here.
That's nice.
And their kids are coming to the club now. So it is nice. But yeah, I guess I definitely think there were certain records I will play that probably weren't getting played in other clubs that I managed to grow into floor fillers, and I'll shout them out.
Can you give us an example?
Transglobal Underground, Templehead.
Nice. I remember that.
And a track by an artist called Matar, which I think there was some involvement with Weller on that, called Indian Vibes. And it's just it's almost like if you stuck a sitar over Fool's Gold, and nice. and that really worked.
Just Matar. Just
Mathar.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No,
I'm sure as 90s lads, you'd hear that and you'd be like, yeah. And a little bit later on, I really, really pushed bands from that kind of the peripheries of Britpop. I really pushed My Life Story, David Devine, Spirit Wife, Rialto, lots of bands like that. You know, big kind of epic songs. I think probably those. There's probably countless more. Blur. I was a big. It felt like Modern Life is Rubbish was a forgotten record at the time. You know, Blur had their moment with
they kind of got some success, and then I think people forget they sort of, you know, got put off to the side.
Was a minor hit, and then I remember it when I heard For Tomorrow, and I've seen Blur more than I've seen any other band, and we'd go and watch Blur all the time in like the old Trout in Windsor, just little venues, and I to this day I still think Modern Life is their greatest record. I think it's absolutely fun. Advert was a track that I turned into a big tune on the dance floor at the Toothbrush. Which was
I heard your interview with Dave Rowntree on Off the Beaten Track.
Right.
How was it? Yeah. How was it to chat to him, man? That's pretty exciting.
I was a little bit like starstruck, really. I'll try and kind of. I mean, fucking hell! You interviewed Roddy Bottom. I would be starstruck if I got to chat to him. But yeah, like I think he DJ'd at the Toothbrush anyway, and I knew that he was probably going to be all right, and he was lovely, and it just happened to be. It felt so right. Literally, I woke up that morning and I was interviewing him at 10. And then literally at 9 o'clock, they made the announcement that Blur were playing Wembley Stadium. And I just thought, fuck me, this has felt right. I'm going to get a lovely little exclusive here. But yeah, I'd met Graham. This is quite a 90s story. And I used to go in the mid-90s, used to go up to Camden a lot and just have a pocket full of demos and hang around the Dublin Castle and just try and meet Andy Ross and whatever labels were there or whatever pop stars were there, just force a cassette in their hand and go, "Oh, get me a record deal." And but Southend boys were menswear, and I knew them like because they used to come to the club.
We were menswear fans,
right. Yeah. So Chris Gentry used to be in a band called Smear, and we used to play together all the time. And then Chris used to wander around in a Kingmaker t-shirt with really long hair with red streaks in it.
Was it the "Fuck Me, It's Kingmaker" t-shirt?
That
was a popular one, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Chris disappeared. He said, "I'm going to move to London." I was like, "All right, cool." And about 3 weeks later, Kingmaker fan, you know, red-haired hippie Chris was in Select magazine on a Vespa in a fucking three-piece suit, and I was like, hold tight, what's happening to Chris? And I was like, it's Johnny as well. What's going on? They're all mods. And then it blew up. But I was at the Dublin.
I wore a snake belt for my first whole year at
remember your
university because
snake
of Chris Gentry.
That's a solid look, Luke.
True story. He had one in the NME, so I had to get a snake belt.
Oh,
anyway, sorry. Go on.
I think
sorry.
he works in him and one of the other guys from the band set up a management company, didn't they? I think they certainly
They've all gone on to do
party,
successful stuff, right?
Yeah. And obviously Matt Everett has done really well. So I'm outside the Dublin Castle talking to Chris Gentry, who was at probably the peak of menswear success. And so I was just chatting to him, and I had peroxide hair at the time. And then all of a sudden, I've just felt like someone come up from behind me and put their hands over my eyes and kiss me like on the cheek and just go, "It's Robbie," right? And I just thought, what? And then I just heard Robbie Williams, and so I turned around a little bit taken aback and sort of took a backward step to sort of assess the situation. And there was Graham Coxon pissed out of his head, who thought I was Robbie Williams. And I was like, but you know, as much as
Robbie did have peroxide
at the time,
when he was in his trying to hang out with Oasis phase.
Absolutely. And so I was a bit taken back by it, but then also just in awe that it was Graham Coxon.
Yeah.
I was like, fucking hell, Graham. I said, like, where have you been? And he said, I've just got back from Top of the Pops because we've gone to #1 with Country House. This is a Britpopper story as it gets. And so I then just, had a little drink and was completely starstruck and spoke to Graham Coxon. And then my mate was driving. On the way home, we drove round to Food Records, and outside the record company building was about 15 foot high with this sort of A-frame for sale sign on the front of the building saying Country House for sale. And it was like a promo thing. I was like, fucking hell. I said, I want that. So my mate drove his car up onto the pavement, and I stood on his roof and he stood on my shoulders, and we ripped it off the building. And where there was two of them like stuck to the wall, we split it down the middle and we had one each. And that Saturday, if that's not 90s enough, that Saturday I was watching the chart show, and they were talking about Country House being at #1. I don't know if you remember, they used to put up a little bit of stats in the middle of the record of the middle of the video.
Yeah.
And it just come up about Country House had gone to #1, blah blah blah. And then the next one come up saying that a Country House for sale sign had been stolen from their record company building.
That was the fact.
And I could see it in the corner of my room, and I was thinking, shit, that's me. God,
so you're on top of the Pops pretty much.
Great.
That's great.
So yeah, that's my Britpop story.
That's good, man. So I was thinking, like, so post Britpop and then pre the Strokes, like music seemed to be completely fragmented. Right, you got like the Scottish indie stuff started, Bell and Sebastian and Arab Strap. You had some like amazing guitar bands that I love, like 6x7. You had like Big B and Skint Records and all of that. How did you negotiate that as a club DJ? Was there something that kind of brought everyone together?
Yeah, my incessant up until I was done an Off the Beaten Track live show last night, and I played it on there to everybody that turned up, because people don't get how good So Close by 6x7 is. It's the greatest intro to any record. and I have championed
You're preaching to the
record.
Converted.
It's fucking amazing, and people don't know it. And
we saw them live, didn't we? We saw them live.
Yeah, I've seen them like 3 times, but we saw them together. Yeah.
Oh, what a band!
They were an amazing live band as well.
Yeah,
unbelievable. Yeah, and they did the best version of Heroes I've ever heard. They used to do a live version of Heroes, just unbelievable. Yeah.
What a band!
Yeah.
So,
what a band.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I'm generally always the one mentioning 6x7 to people, and they're like, "Who?" And I'm like,
"Yeah, such a shame, man. People need to go and listen to 6x7.
Yeah,
if they haven't already."
Massively.
For sure.
Club-wise, it was weird because yes, you had Bell and Sebastian that weren't necessarily making indie club bangers as much as I love them. I think they're amazing. But they weren't really making songs that were going to get drunk students going.
Same with like Arab Strap, right? You can't really play that
Completely.
kind of miserable Scottish mumbling.
Yeah. Shout out Idlewild for Scottish bands that were making some great records.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
But
especially those that early EP, right? The Captain, all of that. So good.
It sounded like Nirvana, didn't it? Sounded just like the
raucous noise. Like, they were phenomenal when I see them. Obviously I see them become basically, a Scottish REM, just become like a really, fantastic band.
Focused,
But I think that period is a weird one, is a lull. And
there was a lull, yeah, for sure.
It kind of, people got acoustic guitars out, and it was Turing Breaks. It was Star Sailor, Coldplay, Badly Drawn Boy, Embrace, and I think that the debut album by Embrace is a masterpiece.
Same.
When we went to see them like early on, and they were amazing. But after that they went a bit,
I agree. But that first record and them early EPs were phenomenal. And I think you could play You're Your Good Peoples and Come Back to What You Know, and that was having big kind of reactions on the dance floor and stuff. But it was really weird. There was is that early enough? I'm trying to think if at this point as well there was, I guess, like new metal was happening. That
was kind of finished by then, though. New metal was like 94 to 96, wasn't it?
Deftones and stuff like that.
That's true. But they were they were a rare good new metal band, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
we spoke to the guy from Censor the other day, and we blamed new metal on him.
I shaved my head because I wanted to look like the guy from Censor.
He was a lovely guy. He was really interesting.
I didn't look like the guy from Censor. I just did not manage to have that look. But what a band they were.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Just explosive energy, right?
Yeah, phenomenal. But it was a really weird time, and it did feel that. I guess obviously Coldplay were huge, but again, you're not playing.
Like when the Strokes came along, were you like, oh fuck? Finally,
completely. Like the hearing the Strokes and the Vines and hot
White Stripes,
and it
all came back.
I don't like the White Stripes. I don't get it.
What?
I just don't get it. I've never got it.
Mate, we've been getting along so well. Really?
Don't get it. There's bands I don't get, right? And the bands I don't get that my mates are like, what? I don't get Led Zeppelin.
Same. Yeah, no time for that. Yeah.
I don't get Muse.
I don't mind Muse.
He's more of them. I'm out. I'm out.
I've seen them live. They're very good live.
And Muse. I like Plug-in Baby, and I like Muscle Museum. Is it Muscle Museum? Yeah. Like, apart from that, nah. And I don't get Biffy Clyro. Like,
they're like the UK Foo Fighters, right? They're not bad, but they're little to hold on to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I did see them live at the NME Awards about 10 years ago, and it was phenomenal, the amount of noise that little band makes. It was like live. I was like, all right, I get this now. And also, he was the most handsome man I've ever seen. I'd only ever seen this guy with like messy long hair over his face, with his shirt off. And all of a sudden, I was with someone that was, I was just my mates plus one that was getting an award. So I got to kind of hobnob a little bit. And so he was doing this press thing, and I was just sort of standing behind him, just trying to stay out of the way, whilst he was sort of working his way along as you walk in Brixton Academy. And there was all of these people walking past me, and I was thinking, fucking hell. And I kept nudging him, and I was like, la, 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 la. And he was like, just chill out with me. I was like, yeah, I'm trying. But I was just like a dog with two dicks, just like, holy shit. Like, I don't even like Guns N' Roses, but I was like, man, look, there's Slash. Like, this is insane. And he was just like, will you be cool? I was like, right, yeah, I promise. Yeah. And then this guy walked past in a suit with this kind of quiff. And I was just like, my God, like, that is an insanely handsome man. And I said to James, I went, who's he? And he went, it's a singer from Biffy Clyro. I was like, what? And like he has been hiding a pretty face underneath that messy hair. He was insanely handsome. Yeah, but still live, I get it, but on record, no.
You just say you don't like
No,
Guns N' Roses. I think that's what you said, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't.
It's fair. It's fair. I mean, I love them, but it's fair. It's fair. Yeah.
Welcome to the Jungle. I get. I like the energy. I like the fact that it's not necessarily that they looked cock rock then, but they weren't cock rock. They were a bit more, kind of.
Yeah.
They weren't.
They were like they felt dangerous, right? They felt like
definitely.
Yeah, and that was exciting, you know. Although Kurt, I think Kurt's take on it, as in, you know, he refused to tour them, call him racist, sexist, homophobic, which is fair. That's a good take, right? You know, so
I just can't. I can't subscribe to Axl Rose. I think the guy's an absolute
It's understandable. Yeah.
And when you look at I never released this podcast, but I've done a little series of podcasts with a former musician and comedian called Josh Weller, and we basically done this series of podcasts where we'd talk about the differences in money available to musicians now to what it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And we got to speak to this video director. And when I had in my head the most ridiculous video ever, I knew exactly what it was. And this guy had made like all the Bros videos, E17 videos, and then he made Bon Jovi videos, and he made like literally Aerosmith videos. He'd done everything, and he was fascinating. He'd just be talking about them. And then he went on, and obviously I made the Guns N' Roses videos, and I was like, what one? And he went,
say November Rain on you.
He said November Rain, and I was like, holy shit, you made November Rain. And he was like, yeah. I went, tell me all about it. And and he went, the church was on wheels. That church is using young guns. It's just left in the desert, and they just wheel it around sets.
What do you mean? That's
wow.
Wow. The band turned up. I think the band turned up 2 days late. Like he said, like normally not 2 hours, 2 days.
2 days.
Like you're sitting there. When they arrived, none of the band were talking to Axl.
Right.
And he said the bit where Slash give him the ring.
Yeah. Okay.
And walks out the church. He fucked off. That was it. He did fuck off at that point. That was it. He was gone. Walked off set.
Did you ask him to explain how Slash was on the hilltop with the guitar not plugged in?
Not plugged in. Famously not plugged in, yeah.
But he was also saying that Axl was like business savvy. They said that he wanted to do this big budget video, and they're like, look, this is insane. Obviously, he'd put the concept together because it was all about him.
It's just
and they're like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And the label were like, don't know if this is a good idea. And he went, well, we want to do this MTV premiere where they premiere the video like a film.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
And he said, it's going to be a big thing, trust me. And everyone was really skeptical. And I think that album had sold however many million at that point. That MTV premiere dropped, and then it sold quadruple what it had sold. Yeah. So as mental as that video is, it worked. Yeah.
And I think it's Donald Trump's favorite music video.
Of course it is. That makes sense. I'm sure there's probably another.
I'm sure I heard.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Or I bet he's into Kid Rock. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely into Kid Rock.
That famous. Oh, we've been ages. I won't keep you too much longer. I want to talk a little bit about youth cultures. I've heard you talk a little bit about youth cultures and stuff on Hardcore Listening. It's something I'm obsessed with, basically. So, we talked before. I am. Grebo, grunge, Britpop. Whatever the Strokes thing was, the skinny jeans thing. I'm struggling to think of anything since emo. I mean, you see the kids coming through the club, 18 years old the whole time. Is there anything is it less tribal now than it was? And is that a good thing?
Undoubtedly, without doubt, it's less tribal.
Yeah.
Because I do think of things like Spotify and YouTube, where people are exposed to everything all at once.
Yeah.
And a lot, you know, it's a double-edged sword, because you do get, apart from metalers, they're still die hard.
Yeah, they're always
metalers
are
metalers, and
Yeah.
you got to respect them for that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's very, like, I look at my kids, and my kids are 20 and 17, and don't get me wrong, my daughter came down the stairs about 3 weeks ago in a Meat Is Murder t-shirt, and I literally nearly burst into tears with pride. But rewind about a year ago, and I was showing her the one of the early Morrissey videos from, is it the humorist video, where he's I think he's doing one of the early singles on stage, and everybody's just scrambling to get on stage to just, you know, grabbing him or hug him. And I was sort of trying to, you know, show my very young daughter that time this, and she's like, it's like One Direction but different, isn't it? I was like, yeah, kind of. Like, it's fanaticism at its highest. And I was like, but you might want to avoid this guy now, because he's not quite a pro anymore. But I do think that you know, my kids will listen to anything now, because I think Spotify playlists are so varied, and how they consume their music is so different. And I think the way that young people are brought up now is they're far more open-minded and less judgmental, and maybe sort of the blinkers.
But that's the fun part, right? It's fun to hate the metalers or whatever, you know.
I know, but, you know, did we ever really hate metalers? Did we ever really?
No, that's true. No, we didn't. No,
it was like,
no.
But
there was always some crossover, right?
And we'd always want to be just, you know, you'd want to wear your band t-shirt, you'd want to have your favorite bands written on your bag, because you wanted an identity. You wanted to, you know, I don't want to quote Quadrophenia, but you do want to be one of the faces, and you do want to, you know, project, you know, who you are. And, you know, I'd always put my coolest record at the front of my record collection when my friends come round, you know, because, you know, I wanted it to really project, you know, I'm this person. And I think as time goes on, as you get older, you know, that stuff sort of disappears. But I do like the fact that it's very, very open there, and I think that's reflective in music festivals. And I think
I was going to say, that was literally what I was going to say. Is like, you can see that in the Glastonbury crowds now. You know, it's just, you know, and kids having a weekend away, isn't it? That's all it is.
Yeah, and I struggle when you see people that are my age, the day that a Reading announcement to get made, and the 1975 are on it, who I think are great. The 1975 are on it, or I don't know, Lords on it, and they'll post the 1992 Reading
Luke's not
lineup.
happy with the 1975, I don't think.
It's all right. Go on.
But they'll post the 1991 or whatever, the lineup with Nirvana on it, and just go like, fucking hell, like, look what's happened. And it's like, mate, you're nearly 50. You ain't going anyway. Let it go. Let them 17-year-olds have the time of their life, you know. So, yeah. But on the 1975, I wasn't into it.
Go on, convince me.
I'm going to convince you, Luke, right? I'd heard Chocolate and stuff, and I didn't like it. I thought it was like just a bit in excess, and a bit. I quite liked the 80s production, but it just didn't do it for me. I listened to Matt Haley being interviewed by Eddie Temple Morris when they dropped their second record, and Eddie was talking about how incredible this record is, and how he didn't give a shit about the 1975 until then. And I really respect Eddie's musical taste, and I was like, I'm going to listen to the 1975 second record. It blew my fucking socks off. like absolutely blew my
All right.
socks off.
Go on, Luke.
Tomorrow's playlist.
There's your homework. Go and get it.
That's my homework. I'll do that. I'll do that.
Love
tomorrow.
it if we made it and give yourself a try. Fantastic pop records. And what I like the fact that they really play with pop. And, you know, they released a track called People a couple of years ago, which was essentially 9 Inch Nails. It was just pure industrial. Yeah. And now they're making, you know, really slick pop as well. And I just think I quite like it that, you know, one of the biggest bands in the country are just messing with format and messing with, you know, it can only be, you know, good for young kids. And
I think he's an advocate for bringing ticket prices down and all that sort of thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
Luke, what was your what happened to your corner shop gripe?
Yes,
right. So fucking hell, right? So they, I bought ticket. They were playing in Bristol at the Fleece and Firkin. Have you ever been there? It's like a pub venue. Okay, I saw some good bands. I saw Mogwai in there, man.
Yeah, Nirvana played there famously. I think
they did. Yeah, I think they did. Yeah. So I bought tickets to see them, and then like couple of months in advance or whatever it was. I went to, you know, I got on the bus, went down to our price, bought the tickets and all that. And then the week of the gig, they went to number 1 with Brimful of Asher. So they decided they were too important for the Fleece and Firkin and they cancelled the gig. On the day of the gig, I even went down there and there was a sign on the door saying it was cancelled because they thought they were better than the Fleece and Firkin after being number 1 for 2 days. And I never got to see them. There you go. That's my beef with the corner shop.
He also refused to come on Off the Beaten Track.
Did he?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I sent him a very nice message.
Though,
love to chat to you.
They released an album last year. It was pretty good.
That's why I hit him up. I liked it.
Yeah.
He was just like, no, I don't do that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, fair enough. Did you ever see a Bristol band called Halo?
No, don't know them.
Do you know what we done some shows with them, and one of which was at the Firkin in Bristol, and it was their home show, and they were phenomenal. A little bit early Muse actually, and they had a track called Sanctimonious, which I'd suggest if you get a chance to go on YouTube and watch Halo Sanctimonious. It's absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, like they got a massive record deal, and it just didn't seem to happen for them. But yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah. You've had amazing people on Off the Beaten Track. Speaking of that, I mean, I haven't listened to all. I've listened to a lot because I subscribe. Tommy Lee, Foo Fighters, Butch Vig, you said, Killers, Super Furries, Dodgy, everyone. Which, I mean, who were you most excited about or nervous about?
My when I set the podcast up, I had 2 people that I wanted to get on. One was Johnny Marr, and I've not had Johnny on yet. I've had Niall, I've had his boy on, but I've not had Johnny on yet. So the invitation is still floating about in space to try and reach out to Johnny Marr.
Johnny, if you're listening to this one,
come on, Johnny. But the other person who I think is a phenomenal talent is the actor Maxine Peake. And
Maxine Peake.
And I got who, when I was prepping for it, realised that she'd released the record with Johnny Marr, and I was so nervous because I think she's one of the best actors the UK's got.
Yeah, you just want to do it justice, don't you? That's where the nerves come in.
And she was so adorable. Like, she was the first person to get really emotional on a podcast, you know, discussing Puff the Magic Dragon, and it was,
mate, I've got that up there,
mate.
My first ever record. I've got it up there. Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah,
and you'd get it then. Like, it was, what a sad record, and yeah. So that Maxine, like, absolutely blew me away. I think in regards to sort of being maybe nervous. Oh yeah, of course, Chuck D. I was so like, you know, being the age I am and seeing Public Enemy as a teenager, and like when you know that, you know, in any minute now this screen's going to pop up, and
yes, that's the bit in it. That's what when Roddy was
Chuck
coming.
D's going to be there.
Yeah, it was
That's
so weird.
insane.
And there's no fat on him. He was just like everything I asked him, he just had a fucking slick as fuck answer, just straight off the hip. And it was like, oh mate, of course you're gonna be like that. You're Chuck D. So Chuck D was one I was completely starstruck with.
Great.
But
all right, thank you. We've kept you really way too long. Of course, we'll put links to your podcast and stuff in the podcast feed. Is there anything you want our listeners, if we have any, to look out for or to listen to?
I'll do a quick plug. If you're in Essex on a Friday night and you want to come and dance to some indie music, come down to Pink Toothbrush. You'll love it, and it's great. If you like your podcast and you like hearing people talk about music, as the lads have said, I've got Off the Beaten Track. I've also got a podcast with a one-man band musician comedian who's called Cunt and the Gang, who's had he's had sort of several Christmas hits over the last few years with
Prince Andrew as a sweaty nonce.
That one and the Boris Johnson one. He's my best friend. We've grown up together. All the bands and the clubs that I spoke about, we've done together. And we have a monthly podcast called Acceptably in the 80s, where we go back to 40 years that month and we talk about the charts and we talk about the films. And it's a lot of fun. So maybe give that a listen. And if for some reason, I'm going to throw it out there now while I'm on the plug. For any reason, any of you are into the UFC or mixed martial arts, I have a weekly podcast with Blake Harrison, who was Neil in the In-Betweeners, and we talk about all the fights and the fight news and stuff like that, which is my other big passion. And if you're scratching around for any more podcasts, then I'd suggest you go and check out www.podbiblemag.com, or buy a copy of the Sunday Times once a month, because Pod Bible is a magazine owned by me, Scroobius Pip, and a gentleman called Adam, and it's your enemy of podcasts, and we put that out. Or just head over to the website, and there's up-to-date news and recommendations from all the biggest names in podcasting through to all the new and exciting podcasts. Didn't take a breath there, boys.
Hey, that's good. It was good.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. And thanks so much for asking me on this podcast.
No, it's our pleasure.
Lads. Thank you.
So there we go. Stu Whiffen of the Pink Toothbrush. It was a good one, wasn't it? Really, really nice fella.
Dave, you weren't in the interview. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I already said before, but the one word description would be warm for me. Very warm guy.
That's a strange word to use. What did you do that for?
What do you mean?
You could have chosen anything. You chose warm.
It's nice. All right.
It's a bit like moist.
What one word would you use to describe him?
Nice.
And I'll go for passionate.
It's a nice, passionate, and warm. But yeah, carry on, Dave. Sorry.
I wish I'd, because I listened to the interview and I wish I'd gone and watched that documentary you mentioned. The one I have watched, though, is that documentary about common people, which was really good.
Yeah, me too. After the interview, I went and watched that. Yeah.
My take on common people is, looking back at it, is I feel sorry for the girl in it now. I feel like it gives her a bit of a hard time.
She deserves it. She had no idea about life for working class people in this country.
No, but if you listen to it now, 30 years on or whatever, I think, he just seems a bit of a bitch.
Oh, come on. Everybody hates a tourist, especially when they think it's just such a laugh. Chip stains and grease won't come out in the bar. I think, fuck her, man. No way. I've got no idea.
You're siding with the wrong one, Dave.
So how about my claim that it's the best song of the 90s, which I stand by?
Yeah.
Back it up.
Well, like I talked about with Stu, right? Just like the social commentary and all of that. I think it's as well as the hopefulness of it. It's a real kind of like like a flag waver for working class kind of hopefulness. I think it's.
I'd kind of agree. It's probably the best indie song. It's not the best song, because the best song of the 90s is John Cicada. Another Day.
Jarvis is like an anti-hero, right? We would never see anyone like that, really. Kind of, not only go to the top of the charts, but be like tabloid fodder.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, some of the songs, the lyrics, he's sort of more writing about the 80s than 90s.
Yeah, pop started in like 1978 or something like that, right?
But yeah, everyone had that album. It was on in every student house at that time, right?
Oh, it's maybe it's an all killer, no filler record. It's so good. Yeah.
I mean, Common People wasn't my favourite song on the album. I liked Ease and Whiz and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's a great song, that.
But you said Common People was your best indie song of the 90s.
I think I only said that so I could segue into talking about John Cicada.
Fair play.
Fair play, yeah.
All right, so 1975.
Yeah. So because Stu gave you some homework to go and have a listen, right?
He did, but he gave me the wrong homework. So he said the second album. So I listened to it and I thought, this is shit. And then I listened back to the interview and he mentioned a couple of song titles and they were from the third album. So I think what he meant was the third album. So I listened to that and it was slightly better than the second one, but it wasn't all that. It
Still
wasn't
not
great.
convinced.
It didn't blow my socks off in any way whatsoever.
I did Luke's homework as well, and I disagree. I think they're very good.
I quite like. I did like the 1975.
Why do you like them, Dave?
I get it's just maybe you just like harder music.
Yeah, maybe that's fair.
I think that's probably true. They're very poppy, aren't they? 1975. Pink Toothbrush, longest running club in the UK, as we said, or indie club.
Yeah,
that's a long time to sustain something for, right? That is an achievement in itself.
I really feel like we have to go there.
We should go there, but
we're too
my
old.
clubbing days. Yeah,
we're not. Stu still goes, isn't he?
If he could get us in the booth behind, just we could sit down somewhere and enjoy it.
Right.
Then maybe
have a good old sit down
and a kip.
Yeah, then I'll be up for that. If he could get us like a VIP or something, so we had comfortable seats.
Have either of you ever DJ'd?
No, I always liked the idea. I spoke to Stu about it in the interview. It must be an amazing feeling to drop a tune and everyone going nuts.
Yeah, I've done it a few times in Tokyo.
Have you?
Yeah. I used to DJ at a bar, quite a little bit out of the centre, but then I used to DJ like between bands.
I've never heard this. Why haven't you said this?
He doesn't blow his own trumpet, does he?
You don't even need to wipe your own arse over there.
You still need to. You just don't need to do it as much because it's mostly got it clean for you. I played this like punk all dayer in Shinjuku, and it was quite a few like locally famous bands were there, and like I'd got all these like cool kind of records ready because I thought they're going to be like punks and they're going to be like really into their music, and I need to be cool. And when I didn't get there till like 8 o'clock, I think my set started. And like it started like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so everyone was just like completely
blotted.
Basically. So when that situation, you just got to play the tunes, right? So I abandoned my obscure shit and just played some top pogo tunes. Played Pogo Machine by Registrators, and the crowd went mad. I only wanted to mention it so I could put it on the playlist.
Yeah, nice.
They're a Japanese garage punk band, and Pogo Machine. It's impossible not to pogo when Pogo Machine's playing. Simple as that.
Yeah,
I can't wait to listen to it.
Back then, you didn't have Spotify or anything like that, so your club DJ was the selector who sort of formed your musical knowledge at the time.
The power they wielded.
I know.
They're like living gods, aren't they?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's how you discovered new music back then.
Yeah, definitely.
You heard a song and then you went up to the booth and said, "What's this?"
Yeah. Have you ever gone up to the booth and asked the DJ what a track is?
Yeah, I have actually.
Yeah, I think I have too.
But yeah, you wouldn't do it now. You just fucking Shazam it, wouldn't you?
I mean, when I was DJing, I played the Headcoats version of Teenage Kicks, which is a great cover, and had a couple of people come up to me and ask what it was. Yeah, it's a good feeling, I enjoyed his stolen Blur sign and Graham Coxon anecdote. It was great, right?
It was just it'll come to the basically the 90s in that little incident.
Yeah, it's great.
You had Robbie Williams, Country House,
Chart Show,
Blur. Yeah, it was all sort of there in that in that encounter with Graham
Yeah.
Coxon. Yeah, it's a great story. Which reminds when he was talking about stealing the signs, there was a really weird craze when I was at university. I don't know if it was a nationwide thing, of just like stealing for sale signs on the way home. Completely pointless.
It's probably like the most student-y thing you can do, isn't it? You know, stealing like a fucking traffic cone is like the most cringe-worthy student-y thing that you can do, right? Did you have any embarrassing student posters?
There used to all be enemy cones and stuff.
Didn't you have like student crossing with like a sign with like a drunken person? Didn't you have that one?
But X-Files was big, and people used to put that stuff on their window that said, what was it? Trust no one. Everyone used to masking tape it on their windows. Trust no one.
Or train spotting when we were there, right? Train spotting posters for the big one.
I think you got a poster with the CD.
Oh, was that right?
I
Really?
think so. Yeah.
Every
Yeah, it
student's
was
house had a
everywhere.
train spotting poster.
It did, yeah. It's a
Literally.
good poster, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how he spoke about how like indie nights became like really cool in the mid-90s with Oasis, basically. As soon as some guys from Manchester turned up with Ben Sherman shirts and loved football, then it became mainstream, right, to go to an indie night.
I got another pissing next to a celebrity story. Following on from my Beastie Boys at the urinal story. I went up.
Hang on, I haven't told mine yet.
Come on.
Richard Branson.
Did you?
You can't just say the word Richard Branson. What are you talking about?
You weed next to Richard Branson?
Yeah. I used to work for Virgin Net, and he came and saw us once, and we had an evening out, and I went for a wee, and he was next to me.
What did he smell like?
Money.
He didn't really have a smell. He was completely scentless.
Be a scentless apprentice. Did you get a look at his old fella?
No.
Do you want to play cock trumps? Do you want to have a guess?
He's probably like Jeremy Beadles.
Probably is. Yeah.
But I didn't see it, so you know.
No, well, mine's not a story. I went up to Camden Monarch. I think they had an indie night, and I had a wee next to John Sim. Do you remember him?
Yes, Human Traffic.
Human Traffic. He was the indie boy actor at the time, right?
Yeah, well, go on then. Cock trumps.
Cock trumps, John Sim. I reckon a good sturdy one. Yeah, straight down the line.
We can't nick another podcast thing like this.
That'd be the last time we play cock trumps.
All right. Sorry, Stu.
So we're talking about how it became a bit laddish in the mid-90s. Indie nights became a...
I think our podcast became a bit laddish as well.
It did. We accidentally did it, didn't we? We became lads.
Jesus.
Fuck.
Sorry.
I guess you dress like Jarvis Cocker and all that, all those sort of ilk. And I probably dress more like the Gallaghers, I guess. It's just like shirts and jeans sort of thing.
Well, Luke famously in our group never bought any new clothes, did he? Second-hand only.
Yeah. But I reckon I was more of a geezer. Even though I dressed like that, I was, necking lager and doing other things I shouldn't be doing that was part of lad culture, Yeah,
I think it had to rub off on us, didn't it? We're at university when it all exploded. So how are you not going to get involved in it?
My feminist sensibilities didn't sit well with the whole kind of,
That's a difficult one, right? When Gail Porter's tits are projected onto Parliament.
I wasn't into all of that.
So there was all that. There was all the lad, and that did spill into the music scene, right? And indie clubs became cool for a little while. They sprung up everywhere. Every club had an indie night, didn't it?
Yeah.
A couple of years, and then it was back underground again.
Yeah, I guess like 95 to 97 must have been like the peak of that kind of lad rock scene, right?
Yeah, Oasis, The Verve. Who else? Cast.
Forthcoming guests flowered up in there. They're more baggy, right?
Yeah, and they were a bit before,
going
weren't
on
they?
though, right?
They did.
Before
they were a bit
Oasis.
before.
Yeah.
They were kind of 93, 94, weren't they, I guess?
Yeah.
But they were quite laddish, actually, flowered up. Yeah, I'll give you that. Well, you had all those other bands like Hurricane Number One, Monaco, all those sort of bands came in, didn't they?
Okay. Yeah. All of them had one or two good songs, though, right?
Yeah, Hurricane Number One. That
Step Into My World, is that their song?
that's it. Yeah, that was really good. Monaco. What do you want from me? And not
That's it. I mean, Sandstorm
that
Cast is a great tune.
Babylon Zoo. Just wanted to get that in so you can put that on the playlist.
Oh,
Spaceman.
mate, I've been waiting for a chance to stick it on. I love that.
Yeah.
It's a great song.
So do I.
Spaceman.
Yeah. Actually, before you finish, I want to make one correction in the interview. I don't think I ever really did live in a dodgy area in Bristol. You know, I think Neil kind of forced me into saying, I was just trying to sound cool in front of Stu. I lived in one nice area and two normal areas.
Okay, well, I apologise if I put you in an awkward situation.
That's all right. But for the record,
you've corrected the record. So,
all right, record corrected.
You know, so post Britpop, there was a bit of a lull where it was just sort of acoustic bands like Badly Drawn Boy.
Yeah. Or like
you
Bell
know,
and Sebastian. Yeah.
Bell and Sebastian. You know, not really indie bangers.
Yeah, it's really interesting, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, and I do remember that period. It was a lull, but I don't mind an acoustic band myself, so it didn't really bother me. But
oh man, I love Badly Drawn Boy.
That's not a band, is it? It's a boy. I mean, it is, isn't it? It's just it's a solo artist, right?
Yeah.
But what's that other band? Oh fuck!
Cheering Breaks.
Yes, Cheering Breaks.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, it was all of that, wasn't it?
They just played at the Wick Fest down the road from me.
Oh, really? Bloody hell.
Final thing that I picked up on, how music become much less tribal now than the early indie days. Back in the sort of really early 90s with the Grebo bands, it was all Senseless Things t-shirts and Neds t-shirts and stuff. And there's not so much of that now, is there?
But who was it talking about that and how young people are enjoying all kinds of music and they don't have any idea that, say, Fleetwood Mac was a completely different era to, I don't know, whatever they're listening to now.
Yeah, people just listen to music now, don't they? Yeah. Because you put it on Spotify on and it's on shuffle and you just listen to everything.
See, that's good and bad, isn't it? I mean, it's great that they do that, but I don't know, man. It should mean something. You know, the bands should mean something to people. I don't know, like with the vinyl revival, there might be a way into that. People are spending more time with each individual record. They're getting to know the lyrics, and they're spending more time staring at the picture of the band on the front, imitating their look and stuff. I think maybe the vinyl revival might be the way into it. I don't know.
You go in Primark now and there's Nirvana t-shirts.
Right.
I think I saw some Nirvana trousers the other week or something. It's just loads of weird stuff. But do you know what I mean? It's just become
trousers.
That's what band t-shirts have become. Do you know what I mean?
Aren't the young people in Japan more tribal like we were in the 90s?
Yeah, in a way. I think like Japan's like a market of niche markets, basically. So everyone's kind of got their own kind of niche and they stick to it. So it's not tribal like in like a cool subculture way, but there's definitely like a niche which people latch onto.
Episode 11. Oh, interview with Stu Whiffen. What a lovely bloke, though, eh? Hopefully we'll get him back on again at some point.
Watch the documentary. Get on Off the Beaten Track, Acceptable in the 80s. Go on to his socials. He's a really good bloke.
But yeah, if you're watching this, then please do remember to subscribe to the channel. Give it a like. Leave us your comments below. Let us know about the indie scene in your town, the indie clubs you used to go to and all that sort of thing. And start a conversation below. If you're listening, then obviously rate, review, all the things that help the podcast get found.
Mixtape, listen to it. Babylon Zoo. Dave?
See you in a minute.